Oh, now I'm having an existential crisis going through this blog, dude. No. Look at this little blog from July 8th, 2026. What is AGI? The limits, visions, and definitions of artificial general intelligence. Published July 8th. Ooh la 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 la. So a week and a couple of days ago. There are very few expressions repeated so much and defined so little as artificial general intelligence. We use it as if we're a frontier that some systems will cross on a specific day. When we try to pin down exactly what lies on the other side, however, the consensus evaporates. No one knows what the hell AGI is. All right. Why every lab has a different definition of AGI. All right. Let's get into it some more. All right. By the way, if you don't know what the hell's going on, make sure you're liking the video, subscribing. If you like what you're seeing, share it, comment, let YouTube know Qubic is in this bitch. All right. Each laboratory and company offers its own definition, and each definition resembles the capabilities that the laboratory already masters or promises to master soon. Whoops. For some, general intelligence is equal to the human being in any task. For others, to surpass the human in economically valuable work. For still others to reach the majority of cognitive tasks. The three formulations sound reasonable, the three say different things, and to none withstands much scrutiny. Man, how do you define AGI? All right. This is not an abstract quibble. OpenAI's charter defines AGI as highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work. Why does it have to be, dude, economically valuable? It could just be survival. That's where economics comes from. It comes from survival. Like, why does it have to be economically valuable? Because when you, man, all right, let me not get in. That's a whole other conversation. All right. While other leading labs anchor the same word to matching humans across cognitive tasks. Dude, OpenAI has the most dangerous definition of AGI, I have to say. Wow, that's scary. Anyway, as independent analyses of these competing definitions have noted, when the same term is stretched to fit each organization's economic arrangements, disagreement about whether we have reached AGI becomes inevitable. The debaters are not looking at the same finish line. Yeah, of course not. Because intelligence doesn't depend on economic viability. Like, look at any indigenous species or culture of like humans. There's no economic viability of stuff. It's just understanding nature and how to survive off of it. I feel like that's way more economically viable than right? If AI was economically viable, they'd be like, okay, everybody has to be an indigenous, live off the land human. There's no way to be more economical than that. What if that was the consensus with AGI? What if? Are we gonna say, oh, AGI is broken? No, 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 no. That's silly. Of course, that's what. Ah, dude, this is such a fun brain exercise. Like, we don't know what the hell we're doing. All right, academic attempts to define machine intelligence without anthropocentrism. So without making things human-centered, right? Academic research has tried to escape anthropocentrism. Leghutter07 proposed understanding intelligence as an agent's capacity to achieve goals across a wide variety of environments. An elegant definition precisely because it does not tie intelligence to resembling a human. Yes. You can even argue that a virus is intelligent, right? It just knows, oh, this is the thing. All right, connect, link, boom, bam, grow, bam, bam. Man, this makes existence so much more interesting. All right, Wang 2019 shifted the emphasis toward adaptation and defined it as a system's capacity to cope with insufficient knowledge and resources. That's the next step. I like that. Chalet, okay, 2019 turned the question around. He's the guy who behind Arc AGI, by the way. I think if they're referring to the same Chalet. Turn the question around. That matters. What matters is not accumulated skill, but the efficiency with which a system acquires new skills. Each of these proposals is more rigorous than corporate slogan, and each still leaves the underlying problem open. There is no accepted standard for saying when a machine has arrived. Man, are you guys following me? All right, I hope this should be clicking more if you like at least saw my last Arc AGI 3 game run, which I finished 7 games in one go. That shit was easy as hell for your boy. But what it took to get to beat each level, man, how do you even put that in words? You just have to remember what the last level did. Okay, man, how can I articulate what went on in my brain? You know what? I'll do that in another video. I'll react to my own art beating Arc AGI 3 special director commentary because that would be too here and there on this live stream to do it. But yeah, dude, because I can art. It's like back when I was competing in boxing when I'd like look at or just think back in sparring, look at moments and replay them in slow motion and be like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I mean, that's the only way to get better when you get back to sparring. Like, oh, is to replay it in your mind or to at least see it, reproduce it virtually, and then see. Okay, be like, okay, the next time I see that, I'm gonna do this, and then boom, the next time, and then it works. You're like, oh, it worked. But yeah, yeah, to beat Arc AGI 3, which is super easy. Super easy if you're a person. At least for me. But it's super easy. I don't know how to describe. It's just super easy. Go watch the video. It was like a 30-minute video of like me going through 7 Arc AGI games live. Each level progressed on to the next one. It was just like, oh, your brain just I don't know if it has to do with my existing on Earth for 37 years already. Cause I don't know if I could just be like a blank, like an infant and figure the game out. But obviously it took a 30, no, now I'm 38. Actually, my birthday just passed. A 38-year-old me could beat it like just like that. Which means, I mean, thinking how easy it was, probably a 20-year-old me could beat it too, cause it's dummy easy. There are puzzles on Final Fantasy that are harder than Arc AGI 3. Let me put it like that. Like there are I could just recall one level in Final Fantasy X where I'm like, Jesus Christ, how the hell do I get to this level? And I really had to rack my brain. And I'm like, oh, of course, right? So that's intelligence, like really racking your brain. But this Arc AGI 3 stuff is just like, oh, it's like the most simple. It's easier than any Legend of Zelda puzzle. Like it's super easy. Like yeah, the economic Turing test, measuring what intelligence does. All right, faced with conceptual fog, some voices from the industry itself have proposed more down-to-earth criterion, an economic variant of old Turing test. You can't rely on nothing from the 50s, dude. They were retarded in the. You know what? No, let me not say that because Oppenheimer made the atom bomb. But as far as abstract stuff, I mean, anyway. Instead of arguing about what intelligence is, let us propose measuring what it does. The idea shifts the question from the philosophical terrain to the occupational one. A system would have reached relevant milestone on the day it could perform a real job, be hired to do it, and be paid it without anyone around discovering that it is not human. It would not matter whether it understands or reasons in some deep sense. What would matter is whether it sustains the performance long enough to become indistinguishable from a professional. That's not happening ever. Okay, maybe I sound silly, but not in my lifetime. Okay, let's think about it. What could that possibly, if anything, something on the phone, something voice communicated, if anything. But that, nah. The proposal has the virtue of being verifiable. It also has the limitation of confusing, once again, economic capacity with intelligence and of relying on a social verdict rather than on property of the system. A machine could pass the test and still remain, in essence, fragile outside the script for which it was prepared. Yeah, dude, you could still have some bot pass this ridiculous test and still be useless if you change one bit of parameter. So yeah, AGI is quite, quite the goal. In more recent stories, dude, have you seen the movie Ex Machina? I don't know if this is referring to the movie, but I've recommended that movie multiple times on this channel. You gotta watch Ex Machina, dude. Intelligence in Nature Gradient. By the way, I have this link in the description of the live stream on YouTube. So yeah, I'm not gonna read word for word. We gotta keep it a little interesting. All right, if we look at nature, panorama becomes even less clear cut and for good. A New Caledonian crow manufactures tool with which it extracts food and chains together several steps to to solve a problem it had never seen before. No mama's way. An octopus distributes a good part of its nervous system through its arms and solves spatial problems with bodily organization so different from ours that it's hard to find a common language to describe it. Cephalopods for the win. Human intelligence is an architecture, not a score. What? Say what? This lesson should make us cautious also with ourselves. Let's go. Okay, for more than a century, we have tried to compress human intelligence into a number. Ever since, almost said Superman, Spearman 1904 described a general factor that seemed to influence almost all cognitive tests. The intelligence quotient became the convenient summary of something that does not let itself be summarized. And during that same century, we have verified how little that number captures. Wow. Couldn't have said it better myself. Someone who obtains a high score is not necessarily the one who best negotiates a conflict, interprets an ambiguous situation, or learns a new trade under pressure. That's so true. That's like book smarts versus street smarts type of analogy. You know what I mean? The datum is stable. The life it claims to summarize is not. It would be a mistake, nonetheless, to go from excess to emptiness and conclude that intelligence lacks structure. Man. Yeah. Because there's general intelligence, right? And then there's human intelligence where you can literally adapt to any situation. Like a fish can only adapt to water situations. Like an ant can only adapt to ant situations. A human can adapt to literally any human fathomable any like almost any situation, even out the vacuum of outer space, the surface of the moon. I mean, if you believe in science, right? To those of you, I might have some flat earthers listening to me. Humans can adapt to any situation. That's true intelligence. But where do you gauge? I think AGI is like figuring out where that branches out, where it's like figuring out certain things, and then boom, there's this level where it branches out to everything. And it's just about, I think, gen all right, let's think about this out loud. Most of figuring out a problem is figuring out that there's a problem to begin with, right? Because trying to get to the moon wasn't an issue until you realized, oh, the moon is, with all these other tools and like levels of intelligence, you figured out, oh, the moon is like a physical thing relative to Earth and orbit and gravity. All right. That means, okay, now we have airplanes. Now you have to keep in mind this involves a lot of physics and math, right? I'm just being a monkey man describing this, right? Now you learn the moon is a physical thing, which was like many hundreds of years ago. Now you're like, okay, now we have propulsion stuff, we have airplanes. Oh, now we have rockets. Oh shit, I think we can probably figure out how to get to the moon because we understand gravity, we understand math, we understand acceleration, propulsion, and how fuel works, and the weight of the machine, and like it just all this intelligence compounds and gets compressed into this body of science and just knowing, right? You just know, all right, this happens with this fuel, this happens with that material, this happens with this. It's just you compress intelligence into experience, and experience, you encapsulate that experience with language and symbols and all that good stuff. Man, it's dude, being human is incredible. What the heck just happened? Man, anyway, and then the machines are just supposed to figure that out, and then in the last 30 years, dude, come on. It took it took literally billions of years for humans to come up with this level of even perception. And now we've symbolized so many things in language and compute and pictures, and now almost every bit of useful knowledge has been compressed into symbols and computations and images and languages, artwork, you know? Anyway, am I still connected? Dude, if I looked down and saw I was disconnected, I would have just took a oh man. Duk, 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 ding ding. What is the new generations of interactive tests Kind posed by Arc AGI 3 are also revealing. They do not present a puzzle and await an answer. They place the system inside an environment whose rules are discovered only by acting turn by turn. But it's really easy. You can even predict the... Because I remember playing it... Alright, let me finish this. Alright, without prior instructions, what they evaluate is not how much it knows, but how efficiently it learns something truly new. Yeah, because each level gave new stimuli. Okay, there's this thing. Okay, what the hell does this thing do? So obviously this thing is going to help me get to the next level. And you have to use what got you from the last level, that information, that you have to compress that knowledge and be like, how is that knowledge useful for this level, which is completely novel. Right? So each level builds on itself. Man, I can't wait to do a synopsis of beating more Arc AGI games. All right, they place the system inside an environment whose rules are discovered only by acting turn by turn without prior instructions. What they evaluate is not how much it knows, but how efficiently blah, 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 blah. The contrast is telling. In its early versions, people solved most of all these challenges, while the frontier models barely scratched a minimal fraction. It is a difference of nature, not of degree, and it reorients the entire conversation. Yeah, this all looks really random, but once you start playing, it makes a lot of sense. If you're smart like me, from a smart to is it viable? Okay. General intelligence as a network of networks. This is, in our judgment, the most valuable clue we have. If general intelligence is not the sum of narrow competences, nor a number, nor a record in a closed world, but the viability of a system that organizes itself at different scales, then it's improbable that it will arrive at the hand of a single gigantic model that one day crosses an invisible line. It's far more plausible that it will emerge from the interaction of many pieces, agents that specialize and coordinate, memories that persist, modules that evaluate and correct, networks that contain other networks. Man, that's deep, dude. That pretty much explains how you get through Arc AGI 3. Man. Because that's what it takes. That's what it takes. The idea is not new. Minsky, 1986, already imagined the mind as a society of simple processes, none intelligent on its own, whose organization gave rise to something that was. Wow. Okay, let me read that again. The idea is not new. Minsky, 86, already imagined the mind as a society of simple processes, none intelligent on its own, whose organization gave rise to something that was. Generality would then be a collective and not an individual phenomenon. Something that appears between the components and not within any of them. The threshold we so eagerly seek does not exist as a line. It exists, if at all, as the moment when a network of networks begins to behave as a coherent whole. Oh my god, that makes too much sense. Oh man. That makes sense. But why does that have to give us consciousness? Is consciousness a byproduct of just the ultimate survival? Like our perception of being conscious? Oh, now I'm having an existential crisis going through this blog, dude. No. That reminds me of like the gut biome. You know, kind of like how your gut has its own kind of sentience. Oh, is that the same thing with like our spirit and our brain? Like, is that just a byproduct of existing? Ah, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. How Naraxon and Agarth pursue general intelligence. Oh man, can I power through this? Precisely this intuition that guides our work. If intelligence is architecture, it is worth studying architectures. All right, I agree. And if it emerges from networks that organize themselves at different scales, it is worth building as computational simulation. Networks of simple units capable of coordinating, remembering, valuing, and planning. Oh man. That is the logic we pursue with Agarth and with the Naraxons. Not a model that imitates human language from the outside, but a system of systems inspired by the principles through which nervous tissue solves in its own way the problem of adapting to a world that never stops changing. Dude, this blog is on fire right now, dude. I'm having an existential crisis as I read this. We do not thereby claim to be approaching any form of consciousness or any ultimate mystery of the mind. We claim more modestly and more ambitiously at once that the path toward a truly general intelligence goes through understanding and simulating how many small pieces, suitably organized, come to sustain something that none of them contains on its own. Ah. Dude, this was written on the 8th? This wasn't even the end of it? Oh, dude. No, that's it. I'm gonna read more, dude. I'm gonna read more later. So where are we at? How Naraxon and Agarth pursue. That's it. I can't, dude. That's what the. That blew my mind. I'm gonna save the rest of this article for another day because that's a lot, dude. It's not a lot left, but actually no, that's not a lot left. Fuck it. Dude, why superintelligence cannot replace it? Oh, okay, why a single superintelligence cannot replace a society? Okay, I mean that goes without saying, right? Okay, suppose for a moment that the past succeeded and we had a general, powerful, and reliable system. Okay, it would be natural to imagine it then as a supreme intelligence. Oracle, blah 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 blah, capable of overwhelming us, blah 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 blah. There is not, strictly speaking, a superior knowledge stored somewhere awaiting a sufficiently large processor. The knowledge that a society needs in order to function is not concentrated in any mind, but dispersed among millions of people. In large part, tacit, tied to circumstance of place and moment that never come to be put in writing. That knowledge cannot be centralized because it does not exist in transferable form. Dude, this is why Earth is so diverse. So many cultures died and emerged without connecting. That's why there's so many different cultures and ways of going about things. But there's ultimately one body of science because science is science. Anyway, that knowledge cannot be centralized because it does not exist in transferable form. It is created and revised in very action of those who possess it. Cybernetics arrived at the same conclusion by another rule, Ashby's, blah, 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 blah. A law of requisite variety in which beer built much of this thought establishes that only variety can absorb variety. No single controller can match the diversity of states of a system more complex than itself. Wow. Man, people really were in their goddamn thoughts back in the. They had nothing to distract. They were really, they really figured out humanity because there was nothing distracting them. A society generates at every instant far more possible situations than any center could inspect and regulate. To place a single intelligence at the apex of that system would not be the height of viability, but its negotiation, a single point of control confronting a variety that exceeds it by definition. Wow. Man, this is really deep. Exactly the opposite of the recursive and distributed architecture that makes a whole viable. Wow. There is moreover an obstacle that no increase in computation dissolves. Human systems are not closed mechanisms that can be solved from outside. They are adaptive orders in which agents learn, imitate, compete, err, and react to what is said about them. This reflexivity has an uncomfortable consequence. Any prediction or any rule influential enough alters the behavior it meant to describe. A metric that becomes a target ceases to measure what it measured. Wow. A broadcast forecast becomes a prophecy that fulfills or belies itself, excuse me. There is no stable external observation point from which to compute the optimum, because the very act of intervening displaces the target. The uncertainty that surrounds these systems is not a lack of data that more information will remedy, it is structural. Man. All right. The honest role of artificial intelligence in a viable society. All right. Let's assume AI is real. All right. From all of this, there follows an honest and by no means modest role for artificial intelligence, however general it may come to be. It can help us see patterns that escape us, simulate scenarios before committing to them, refine concrete decisions, and make them with less blindness. What it cannot do is take the place of the collective, fallible, and self correcting process through which we learn as a society. Yes, you cannot replace human. You cannot replace humans, dude. You cannot replace humans. You cannot. You just can't. It's not viable. If intelligence is a viable system of systems, so too is a society. And an artificial intelligence, however capable, is one more component within that system, never its apex. Dude, I'm glad I stuck through to the end because that last tidbit was the shit. I'm not sure if you catch how heavy that is. AI is just a tidbit. It's not the apex. If AI is actually gonna be a thing, it's gonna just be something that enhances the forever miracle that human beings are. But only a human could build something that could surpass a human. But I don't think it's anytime. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, guys. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. What you guys think? Oh, Camo Joe's in a his house. How you doing, Camo Joe?